Well, welcome to the Private Practice Elevation Podcast. Christine Lee from Zaya Health. How are you doing, Christine?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on here. How are you?
Oh, well, thanks for being on. I'm doing great. Like I just said before we hit record, our kids are back in school this week, which has been it's been a long process. Like it's been a long summer because our kids actually start school later than like everybody else around us. So everyone else, public schools went back like 4 weeks ago. But their little preschool didn't start until this week. So I've got some more time for doing fun stuff like this and meeting great people like yourself. So I'm feeling pretty good, but I don't know what day it is though. So that's kind of messing me up because we're not into our routine yet. But yeah, doing great. Excited to learn more about you and what you do. And really what I love to hear about is people's story. We discussed this a little bit, especially someone like yourself who has launched a platform that's going to really help and benefit therapists and help them get more clients. Like I want to know a little bit more of the backstory. So why don't you just introduce yourself, tell us a little bit more about um, who you are, what you do to help therapists, and yeah, we'll just take it from there.
Yeah, sounds good. So I'm Christine. I grew up in the Bay Area and I've been interested in mental health for a really long time. Um, I went to a high school with a lot of mental health issues and, just saw how much it could affect people's lives.
Yeah,
And this was back before it was destigmatized. Like there was still a stigma around it. People didn't really talk
yeah,
about mental health that much. And so that kind of thing sticks with you, when you see it at a younger age. So I've always been interested in, and I always knew I wanted to do something in the mental health space, but,
hmm,
academically and career wise, I studied computer science at Princeton and ended up going to tech. So I worked at a few different places and ended up as a product manager at Google, which obviously great company, and had a lot of fun, leading teams and building products that impacted a bunch of people, but ultimately wanted to do something that was closer to my heart and quit my job during COVID to start
wow,
a company in the mental health space to try to make a difference.
wow. Without going down too much of a rabbit hole, I obviously have some questions about Google because I don't think I've ever spoken to anyone who worked at Google. How would you sort of I don't like I said I don't want to get into too much of a rabbit hole. Um, how would you describe your experience there? I guess I'll just leave it pretty open ended there.
Yeah, that's a good question. So I was in a unique role called a product manager, which Google started this program called the APM program, so like Associate Product Manager program, where they take recent college grads and teach them how to become product managers, which was a really fun experience. I think, traditionally most people become product managers after they've had a lot more experience in their careers, and it was cool to be part of a program that kind of trained you on how to do
Yeah,
that. And so I was really grateful to be part of that program and learn from some of the best product managers in the world and
yeah.
had a lot of mentorship, made some of my best friends there and worked with worked with amazing people who are all really smart but also really warm and friendly, and
Cool.
culture overall was great there.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. How much was it like that movie, The Internship?
Oh, yeah. I think there's definitely, obviously it's a movie, but there's definitely
Yeah.
there is like a slide and they have free food and, there you can visit different campuses and
Yeah.
they do have a really fun culture and make sure that,
Yeah.
employees are having fun at work
Yeah.
as well.
Cool.
That being said, obviously there were times where I was super busy and didn't even get to take advantage of some of those things.
Right.
But
Right.
yeah.
Okay, cool. Well, I'll bring us back on track here. Sorry, I didn't want to get down too much of a rabbit hole there, but it was just super curious. But so at what point did you have the idea to start Zaya Health?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know if I can pinpoint like a specific point in time where I was like, all right, this is the idea, I'm going to start it. I think it kind of developed over the course of like throughout COVID. Obviously, when COVID hit, all people started talking about mental health more. I think we were all kind of
Yeah.
bonded over the shared experience of, feeling isolated and not being able to have as much social interaction as we're normally used to. And so I started thinking about it more, and I've always been following the space because I've been interested in it for a long time. But I was excited to see that people were finally starting to talk about it, and it was getting not only destigmatized, but normalized
Yeah.
in conversations. And I think, when I was thinking about what I wanted to do next in my career, I knew I wanted to do something that felt more just personally meaningful to me.
Yeah.
So I think I started thinking about like, what do I want to do? Do I want to become a therapist, which is something I still really want to become a therapist later on in life.
Cool.
Um, but I figured I was like, let me see if I can take what I've learned in, building products at Google and see if there's anything that I could do to have a positive impact in the space without having necessarily a clinical background.
Yeah.
And the goal was always to do something to help both the therapist side and the client side. And I know that a lot of times, obviously, not sometimes companies only help like one side and it's not great for the other. And so that was something that was sort of at our core of wanting to help both sides.
Yeah. So that's a great segue. So tell us a little bit how Zaya Health does that. How does it solve that problem, like to meet the needs of both sides?
Yeah, so when COVID hit, a lot of my friends started going to therapy for the first time. I had been in therapy before, but I found out that most therapists don't take insurance. And I also have some friends who are therapists, and I've heard sort of different things around, the experience for the client, but also for the therapist. And so on the client side, most times when you go to a doctor, they take your insurance and you're just like, here's my insurance card and I pay my copay and that's it.
Yeah.
You don't have to like deal with claims or anything. But because most therapists are out of network, people are paying. So I live in San Francisco, and most therapists charge, I don't know, like 250, 300-ish in this area. Um, and it's a lot of money for most people. And I imagine,
Yeah.
obviously, it's a field you go into, you want to help people as a therapist. You probably didn't want to go into it just to be like, I just want to work with, wealthy clients who can afford $300
Right.
a session.
Yeah.
And I realized that I found out about the concept of a super bill, and I was like, an out of network benefits.
Yep.
And the fact that most people don't know about it or understand, or even if they know about it, they don't understand how it works or how to submit claims because it's not something that people are normally used to because most other doctors are in network.
Yeah.
Um, and so putting the onus on the client to be able to submit these out of network claims and get reimbursed. And I've had friends who've tried and it's gotten rejected and it's this whole headache. That kind of sort of inspired the idea of starting Zaya. And then on the therapist side, there's also the like you either take insurance and there's a lot of restrictions from getting delayed payment or maybe getting paid less than you could make if you're private pay, and also just
Yeah.
like restrictions on how you provide care. We want to empower therapists to be able to build their private practice and have more private pay clients. And so we're kind of trying to help both sides, like help therapists get more private pay clients by helping their clients save money on therapy. So kind of a win-win for both sides and trying to bridge the
Yeah.
gap between in-network and out-of-network therapy.
Yeah, I love that because I feel like it kind of breaks down a wall that like you said, it's an issue on both sides because I speak to obviously a lot of therapists and working together to build their website. And so many times the goal of why they're coming to Private Practice Elevation to work on their online presence is so that they don't have to take insurance. But they feel like they're in this place like, oh, I have to take insurance until I can build up those private pay clients. But then on the other side of it, there's all these potential clients that want to come to them because they do take the insurance. But then if you cut that off, a lot of the times people feel like I'm cutting off like so much access to potential clients because I'm not going to be in the the directory for the insurance panels and that sort of thing. So I just think that that's awesome. Like it's totally solves that challenge on both sides.
Yeah, thank you. It's been great so far. And I think most people don't understand insurance. Like some people don't even know what a deductible is because they purposely use this jargon to make it confusing.
Yeah.
And I certainly didn't know what the difference between in network and out of network was. I was kind of, when you go to a doctor, you're like, do you take my insurance? It's not like, are you in an in network provider with my insurance? And so I think, so we focused on sort of the educational component as well of, even educating people that they have these benefits to begin with. And then we also help them actually navigate the insurance claims process and submit claims for them so that they don't have to do it themselves.
That's awesome. So take us in just a little bit like deeper into like the how it all works. So we most listeners to this podcast are therapists, people in private practice. How would they actually use Zaya Health like in their practice to get more clients?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I would say we have two main parts to our product. So the first part is we provide an instant benefits verification tool that therapists can put on their website, or if they don't have a website, like send a link to their clients or even use just in-app in our portal. And all the client has to do, or the therapist, if they want to do it for their client, is put in their name, date of birth, and insurance ID, and then within like 2 to 3 seconds, we tell them like, hey, congratulations, you're eligible for reimbursement for therapy. Your session fee is, let's say, like $250. And here's your out-of-network deductible, let's say $1,000. So that means after 4 sessions, you can start getting reimbursed up to, and then it depends on their insurance, but
Mm-hmm.
generally anywhere from 50 to 90% of reimbursement, which is way more than most people would expect. So you can get reimbursed 50 to 90% on the cost of therapy, which would lower the net cost from, 250 or whatever it is to sometimes like $50 a session or $80, or it's a huge difference that can make
Yeah.
a huge
Yeah.
difference in accessibility.
Yeah.
And so that's the first part. And like I said before, everything we build, we want to make sure that it benefits both the client and the therapist. And so on the client side, it's like user education, it's helping them understand their insurance so they don't have to go and call their insurance company and be put on hold and deal with all that. And on the therapist side, we've seen a lot of therapists who've used our product actually be able to convert more clients, because if you're saying like, hey, my fee's 250, most people are like, oh, that's kind of a lot of money, you know?
Yeah.
Um,
Pass.
yeah, or like, oh, if you're here, like, oh, you might have out-of-network benefits, you have to call your insurance. People are like, yeah, okay, maybe I'll call my insurance. And of course, that
Yeah.
almost never happens.
Yeah.
And being able to kind of pitch to clients like, hey, it is 250, but hey, your deductible is only $1,000. So sometimes we've seen deductibles as low as like 250
Mhm.
after like 1 session or after like 4 sessions. You can start getting reimbursed, and your net cost is less than $100 a session. And so that sort of type of marketing helps convert.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see how you can use that, like you said, like multiple ways. Having that on your website is super cool for the people who haven't reached out yet. But then also, if you've been emailing or you're doing like a consultation call with somebody and they're asking about costs, it's like you're on the phone, you're like, oh, this feels great. This would be a good fit. I know I can help them. And then you kind of get to that question about the fee and insurance and all that sort of stuff. And then you could even say like, hey, let me look that up for you, like right now, like right on the
Yeah.
call, and possibly like convert people right there.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, because it takes so much time to call an insurance company and figure it out.
Yeah. Yeah.
And those therapists don't have the time to be like, for every potential client, I'm gonna go and spend like an
Yeah.
hour calling insurance to understand their benefits.
Yeah, right. I know for myself, if you say like, oh, I need to call, like even for my own, like, oh, I have a question about something, I put it off like forever. It's like I don't want to call
Yeah,
insurance. I don't want to sit on hold and all that sort of stuff.
no one wants to do that. And it's
Sucks.
always like during work hours, and then
Yeah.
it's like they disconnect and you're like, I have to be on hold
Yeah.
again.
Yeah, yeah. So I've got a geeky question for you. So what how does how have you connected to the data to be able to provide, that so quickly for people through your it sounds like you have an app and like a portal that people can use.
Yeah, it's a very simple app, but great question on the data. It's so we in the back end, if you're curious, we connect with a clearinghouse that has integrations with these insurance companies. So we're basically sending an API call to
Yeah.
them, getting the information back, and it usually takes just a few seconds too.
Yeah. Cool. Love it. It sounds like such a big challenge to like overcome, but then it's just like, oh, you just connect to the API, and it's
Yeah.
like not to like downplay what you're doing, but I mean like that's where my mind goes to like what's working in the back end to provide a great user experience. So it's super cool that
Yeah.
you can tie that in, and then you're solving this challenge for both sides of the relationship here with the therapist and the client.
Yeah, yeah. So this is, I mean, I think most people who've seen what it looks like, and I think most people are just astonished that you can get the information back within
Yeah.
3 seconds because
Yeah.
they're just like, wait, this looks like magic. Like, how do you
Yeah.
do this?
Yeah.
And then obviously it's like it's a little more complicated than just a simple API, but
Right. Yeah.
broadly, that's sort of how it works.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, tell me a little bit about I'm curious about the client side because I know like, clients who are searching for a therapist could use this tool. Do people are you finding that people are like coming to Zaya just to search for therapists, or is it more that therapists are using Zaya Health to like you said, like just kind of start that process for people to see what their reimbursements could be?
Yeah, that's a good question. I would say right now it's more the latter. Like we work with therapists to whether it's putting it on their websites or helping them basically convert more clients. Because if you think about the way that you can think about marketing as a therapist is there's sort of it's a funnel and the top of funnel is just like getting as many eyeballs on your website or just getting as many
Yeah.
people who even know about you, whether that's like marketing on Psychology Today or whatever these marketing services that people or lists that people are on. But out of we're kind of more focused on the second part, which is once you get, let's say, like 1,000 people are visiting your website or your Psychology Today profile, we're helping convert more of those clients
Yeah.
so that like once they hear about you, even if your fee, if you're trying to be out of network and your fee sounds a little higher, trying to convert those clients by helping them understand that it's not actually, $250 a session every week for the rest of the year. It's that cost for a few sessions. And after that, you actually are able to get reimbursed a lot. So
Yeah.
it's not that
Yeah.
expensive.
Yeah. Cool. Again, my mind goes to the geeky side of things, and I'm like, I would love to run a test. If somebody was getting, 6 months of pretty solid traffic to the website, and then they plugged in with Zaya Health and had that widget, if their conversions would increase because there'd be more people, people still landing on the website, but there's probably a good chunk of those people are like, oh, I can't afford this, and they're take insurance and blah blah blah, and they maybe like leave and don't come back. I'd be curious just to see what those conversion rates are.
Yeah, definitely. And that's something that we're working on trying to gather ourselves as well. But
Yeah.
obviously there's so many different website builders. But we have heard of several stories of we've gotten emails from therapists saying, thank you so much for this. Like I think I just converted my first client because normally, you have the conversation, you're like, hey, you might have out of network benefits. I don't know what they are. You have to call your insurance
Yeah.
company. I can't tell you if you have it or not. But instead they just like pulled it up and they were like, oh wow, look, your deductible is only, like 500. And the client's like, oh wow, what is that? What does that mean? Like, oh,
Yeah.
I'm able to get reimbursed. What? I didn't like this is, it helps, like I said, bridge the gap between in-network
Yeah.
and network therapy where it's not as expensive for the
Yeah.
client.
Hmm.
And then we also help, obviously, we actually do the claim submission ourselves. So we submit claims to the insurance company so that clients don't have to even understand the whole process of how everything works. They
Yeah.
just know they show up, and if their therapist is on Zaya, they can use Zaya to submit these out of network claims. We will take care of all the claim submission, and like if it gets denied, we'll fight it, do all of that so that there's no real extra work on the client or the therapist. They kind of just get to focus
Yeah.
on what they're in therapy for, right? Like providing
Yeah.
and receiving care.
Yeah. That's awesome. I love it. For someone who wants to start using Zaya Health, what's the cost to the therapist to use it?
Yeah, that's a good question. So we've tried to make our pricing structure fair and kind of dependent on what you use. So the first part, which is the instant benefits verification tool, it's just $29 a month. It's a subscription fee to be able to put that on your website. You can, if you don't have a website, we give you a personalized link that you can send clients. You can also use it in app.
Oh,
There's
cool.
unlimited usage for that. And there's no annual contract. It's just $29 a month. And that's it. And
Cool.
most therapists are like, this is a no-brainer because if you convert even one client from that, it already
Yeah.
pays for,
Yep.
years worth of the subscription.
Yeah.
And then the other part is the claim submission, which is a sort of a pay-as-you-go fee. It's a 5% processing fee per session/claim. And that is usually put on the client. So it's essentially free for the therapist.
Gotcha. Okay, cool.
Yeah, but the client similarly it's a no-brainer for a lot of clients because they're paying an extra, 5% per session. And even in just the first reimbursement check that they get back, they're often reimbursed, over
Yeah.
$100. That already just pays for itself.
Right. Very
Yeah.
cool. Very cool. I love it. I love just hearing more about it and just like how, yeah, you said your mission was to help both sides of the equation, and it sounds like you're really doing that. So it's very cool. What is so it's like what's the future for you and Zaya Health? Where are you all heading?
Yeah, that's a good question. We are right now we're focused on, just making sure that the eligibility requests and, submitting claims, everything's our customers are happy and building on that. We're thinking of in the future building out a kind of a marketplace for clients to be able to, like what you said previously, come to our site and be able to find a therapist and
Hmm.
especially be able to help therapists just directly market themselves as all out of network therapists, but it can be less expensive than you think because we help clients understand their benefits.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, thank you so much for being on the podcast. Is there anything else that you want people to know about what you do and about Zaya?
Yeah, I think the main thing is if you want to contact us, our website is just Zaya.health. It's Zaya dot Health. Like there's no .com, it's just Zaya.health.
Hmm. Cool.
And then I guess if they have questions and they reach out to you, you can feel free to forward their emails over my way, and I'm happy to
Yeah.
chat with them about it.
Awesome. Yeah, and we'll put all of that in the show notes for this episode so people can find you there. Really appreciate your time, and it was really cool to just hear about this platform and what you're creating. And I know that you're going to help people just have more access to great mental health, and also just help therapists reach more people. So kudos to you, and appreciate your time. Thanks, Christine.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me.